Hello and welcome back. So now this is episode 3 and we're going to start talking about prototyping in Figma. We're going to learn a bit about tips you can do to make it easier for the development handover when you're passing your designs over to engineers. In the previous lessons we've talked about just getting to know that workspace that we're in when we're looking at Figma, what's going on in this left panel, what's going on in this right panel. And in the last episode we talked about some of the kind of like intermediate level features, as I say, stuff about setting up grids, proper use of spacing. But as I say, this is an episode for prototyping and development handover. So let's spend a lot of time talking about prototyping. So here I've just created a screen quickly, a really simple bit of UI which just has a link in there, a bit of text, and it has this toggle button, and we're just going to design some things as we go along to show you all the features that are within Figma's prototyping tool. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to click on this screen, and we spend a lot of our time over here in the design section and we see all the things we'd expect to see. If I go on this bit of text, again you see my text style, you see my colour styles. If I just quickly click on this frame again, now I'm going to click over up here where it says prototype. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on show prototype settings. So what I've done here is I've set this up so that the prototype will appear in an iPhone 8. The reason I have it as an iPhone 8 is because the size of my screen is 375 by 667, which is an iPhone 8 size. If in doubt, I can just go into here and it will tell me the sizes that I'm using. If I wanted to do an iPhone SE, which is 320, I could have my frame set up for that size. But my frame is 375 by 667, so I'm an iPhone 8. And what I'm going to do over here, if I just click on this present will take me into my prototype. So now I'm in the prototype view, and this is gonna, if I had any prototype links set up, this is where I'd interact with it. But I don't have anything set up now, so I'm just gonna go back to my my file. So in here I have this set as space gray. I could change this to gold if I wanted to. I could change this to be a darker background. And if I just go back into here, you can see that things have updated. We'll leave that as it is for now. So let's talk about a little bit about creating some prototypes, creating some links. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to click on this frame and press Command D. And Command D duplicates what I'm selecting. So here it's duplicated my screen. My screen was called Screen 1, and my new duplicate is now just called Screen 2. So now I'm still in this prototyping tab. If I click into my toggle component here, this little bit of UI, because I'm in the prototype section, you'll see this little dot appearing. If I go into the design section, that dot disappears. So I need to be in the prototyping section over here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click and drag this over to screen 2. So what's happened here is you can see the options coming up. This is saying I've got this highlighted on tap. So when I tap on this component, I want you to navigate to screen 2, which is screen 2 right here. So now, when I click on that, it will take me to screen 2. Right now, there's nothing different between screen 1 and screen 2, so we'll have to make a change between screen 1 and screen 2. So what I'll do is I'm gonna just move some bits around, and I'm gonna change this to be our primary. So when I click on this, I want it to go over here. So let me go to my prototype, I'm gonna click on it, and it did. It went over there. You can see that the way that things move there, I'll just show you why they moved in that kind of motion. So in Figma, they've got an option in the animation called Smart Animate. And Smart Animate will do some kind of magic, wizardry, and Figma will just animate the properties that have changed to the time and the ease in which we have set here. If I just wanted this to appear instantly, like at a click, I just set that to instant. I'll go over here, I just go back to here and just click. And there we go, it just happened instantly. You notice if I click on this again, so I'm clicking, you can see that I'm clicking, nothing's happening. It's because I've not set up the link the other way. So all I have to do, click into my component, I've got this appearing, I'm going to drag it, and as you'd expect, on tap, navigate to screen 1. When I click on this, I want you to navigate to screen 1. I've got this set to instant, but I'm going to change these both back to Smart Animate. So you can see now I've got nothing selected, my 2 paths here, my 2 links. I'll just go back into here. Choose that back to Smart Animate. If I just go into my prototype, now we can see that my toggle changes every time I click on it. I'm just going back between screen 1 and screen 2. So this is fine for when you've got quite a simple prototype. But you could end up, I've got a page over here called Spiderweb where I want to show you an example of where things can get really convoluted. So if I just go over to Spiderweb, here I have a page with 4 toggles on them. So before we just had 1 toggle, so you can easily go back and forth between 1 and 2. If I wanted to have 4 toggles like this, and I could have them all in an on or off scenario, it means you have to create, right now, a prototype that looks like this. And I've called it Spiderweb, and you can probably see why I've called it Spiderweb. These are all the different links that I have in here, which show all the different scenarios in which a button can be on or on in all the different positions. And that means just to have these 4 simple links, I've had to have 17 screens and 68 interactions. And I've probably missed some in there, if I'm honest. I tried to just hurriedly put this all together. And if I go into my prototype here, we'll see what that looks like. I'll have a click around, and maybe they might all work. It looks like they're all working, so that's good. And I've got all these different scenarios, and each of these scenarios has to be a screen. Right now, that is the case, but that isn't the case forever. There is a new feature coming out with Figma called Interactive Components, and it should be out fairly soon. So let me explain to you what an interactive component is. Here I've got a toggle, and we talked about variants last time. So what I've done here is I've set up a toggle variant, one which has the property of on here, and one which has the property of off. And what I've done here is I've set up a prototype within my interactive component, my interactive element here. So now this is saying when I click on this, if I just click on there, when I click on this, I want to go to here. When I click on this, if I go back to there, I want to go to property on. So now what was, if I quickly get this one open, what was, I think it said 68 interactions or 17 screens, is now 1 screen. 1 screen with interactive components. So this is going to be a huge game changer. It's going to make everything so much easier for us when we're prototyping. And luckily it means we can avoid these spider webs, which have been a notorious problem when prototyping. So good thing we can avoid that going forward. So we've looked at how we can use interactive components and a simple example, but let's look at some other examples of when we use prototyping, of other types of prototyping, sorry. So if we'll keep that as it is for now. Let's say when I turn this off, I want to have a little warning that pops up. So let's just build out that UI. For now, I'm going to unlink that, and then again, I'm just going to duplicate screen 2, and I'm just going to design what I want this to look like, and then I'll build it out properly. So maybe I want a little modal down here. I'm just going to curve the edges a bit. Yep, that was good. I want this to be white, and so that I can see it, I want it to have a effect. What shadows have I got here? So I can use a shadow. That shadow obviously isn't suitable. I want it to go upwards. So for now, I'm just going to detach that, and I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got a -4 there, just so we can see a little shadow coming up. And probably behind this, I'd probably want to have, there we go, something like that, where it's like a dark screen. Okay, so how I'm going to go about that? I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to delete this screen. I'm just going to put this back to 375. And I'm just going to put this quickly in a little frame, a little artboard. Pressing Command when your constraints are being a bit annoying. Okay, I'll just put some copy in here. Are you sure you want to turn this switch off? So what should we do here? Let's make this a title 5. We'll go like that. We'll just center on it for now. And we'll make it our black colour. Question mark at the end. Center align this. I'm not really too bothered about getting this perfect. I just want something for now. And I think we made a button last time, didn't we? If I go into my components, there we go, I've got a button. Perfect. Which is a variant. Button. Did I make a variant of this? I'm not sure I did, but let me just do this. Yes. Go here. So I'm not really too bothered about getting this perfect. I just want to create this for an example. And no. And just for the note, let's change the blue to that. And we'll change these both to blue, just so a bit of change. Again, not perfect. I'm not trying to get this absolutely pixel perfect right now, but that'll do. That shows an example of what I'm trying to do. So now I'm gonna set up a prototype link, because what I want is this to pop up, this frame here, if I just call this modal, to pop up when I click on this, just to say, are you sure you want to turn it off? And then if I am sure, then it will, and if not, I'll stay where I am. So I'm gonna click on this, and I'm gonna go to modal, and here I'm gonna change it to on tap. Yep, on tap. I don't want it to navigate to that page. Instead, I want to open this overlay. So I want this page to appear on top of this page. I want it to be centered. Here you can see bottom center is one option. I think I want it to appear from the bottom, so I'll do that. Close when clicking outside, I think that's a nice pattern. And add a background overlay, yep, I think that's really good. I'll just make this a little bit darker. And I want this to move in from the bottom. There you go, you can see that animating right there. And that sounds really good. I think I'm happy with that. What I'm quickly going to do is just go to my modal screen and make sure I turn off the background for this frame. Now if I go into my prototype, here I am. So now what I expect is if I click on this blue button, there we go. We've got a modal that turned off saying, are you sure you want to switch it off? Now I've got nothing set up over here, but if I click outside of there, boom, it will just go down. Perfect. And then what I want to do is say, prototype, yes, I do want it to turn off. And now if I do want it to turn off, that means I'd go back to screen 1, go on top, navigate to screen 1, perfect. Animation move in, I don't think makes sense in here. For now, I'm just going to have it as an instant, and here for no, I'd probably want to go back to this screen, and I'll keep that as an instant as well. Perfect. Exactly how I'd probably want it. Let's just see if that works. Are you sure you want to turn this toggle off? If I say no, I want it to stay where it is. Cool. And are you sure you want to turn this toggle off? Yes. There we go. Cool. And another thing we could do on no, instead of just having it so that it instantly goes back to this page, we could have it as closed overlay. So if I go back to here and do that, there we go. So we get that nice motion still intact. But here for yes, we just have that as instant. I think that's quite nice, just to go instantly get what the user wants. Cool. So now that's an example of how we've had an interactive component and an example of how we've had an overlay. Let's look at another example, is moving from screen to screen. So up here, I've got this settings button. What I'm actually just going to do again, I'm clicking on this number 1, this one frame, and I'm going to duplicate that and bring it over here. I'm just going to delete this quickly. And forgive my UI, I'm just going to quickly make a screen called settings, and that would go back to home, and this would go to permissions. If I just, I think I have a chevron somewhere, don't I? In my components, maybe? There's a chevron, so we'll take that, and I'll bring that into my prototype. Cool, let's put this over here, 16 pixels from the edge. Let's change it to just now dark grey, and we will center align those. So here I've got a line vertical, so that means it will align things if they're not quite the right height. And yeah, I'll put a little line under this just to make sure there's a nice little bit of break between the two things. What we got going on here. So if I do that as a 16 there, and I've got an 8 there, so I can get that 0.1 and then minus 8. That'll be 16, 16, perfect. And that looks good. We'll do that as a light grey colour. Maybe that's a little bit too light. Is dark grey a bit too dark? Let's go for light grey. Maybe it's a little bit too light, but that'll do for now. And there's a few pages. I'm just going to group that and duplicate it. There we go. Permissions. What else we got in here? I don't know. Profile, account, and I don't know. What's another thing we could say? Contacts. Yeah, some bad examples, but some examples nonetheless. So what I want to do from here, if I just go over here, I really should be naming my files a bit better. So if I just change 3 to settings, and change this to say permissions. I'll call this permissions toggle Excellent. So what I want to do is now when I click on settings, I want it to go back to this settings screen. So if I just go prototype, settings, again, just dragging that over, on tap, navigate to settings. Perfect, that's exactly what we want. And then when I click on permissions over here, I want it to navigate to permissions. So if I just go over here, if I click back, boom, I'm in settings, if I click on permissions, and there we go. That's fine, like that does the job. But maybe we want it to be like more of like the iOS-y card style where things start overlaying and stuff like that without it being a modal. So let's have a look at how we might do something like that. So the first thing I want to do is actually I want this settings screen to be the screen that starts the prototype, because that's now where things start. I don't want things to start over here. So what I can do is when I'm in the prototype section, this blue arrow here, I can drag that over to my settings screen. And what that says, if I just close this prototype down, that means this is my initial screen. So now if I click on this, I'll be opening up the settings screen right there. So if I go back here, that's where I'm starting. When I click permissions, I want it to go to this permissions page. Let's have a look at what options we've got. So on tap, navigate to permissions. I think navigate to permissions makes the most sense. And I want it to move in. Let's see what move in looks like on their example. So I think moving in kind of like overlays it. We could also have it push out, so it goes like that. Or we could have it slide, have that slide in, so it kind of like does a slight overlay. Let's try slide in just because we've got it for now. So now if I go back to my prototype and click on permissions, you can see I'll get that kind of iOS-y thing. This isn't a modal, so I'm not limited by it being a modal. It is just a normal page. If I go back to settings, I've still got that set as an instant, but maybe I could have that as a slide out and it goes to the left. Let's see if that works as we'd expect. Permissions, that goes like that. Settings goes like that. Yeah, I guess that works. That's probably about how we'd want that to work. You know, it's kind of working in the way we'd expect. And you can do all these different things. It's worth just having a little play around with it. Play with your easings if you want to, and play with your timings. I think when you're creating prototypes, it's really useful just to be lean. Make things fast. You're creating a prototype probably to validate an idea or a concept. So keep things speedy. Don't spend loads of time fretting over the details such as easings and times. Get your prototype built, get it in front of people and test it. That's what you want to be doing. So on the subject of testing, how would you test this? How do you get this in front of people? So if I just go back into my prototype, over here you have the option to share the prototype, which means that you can click on that and you'll have a link and people can open that on their mobile. If they open it on their mobile, you won't see this. You won't see the iOS outline here, the phone. You just see the screens. People can tap on it and interact with it as you expect. And you could probably also share this on a desktop experience if you wanted to by sharing that prototype again. If you do share it on a prototype experience, or if you did make a desktop prototype, over here in options, what you really want to do is hide the Figma UI, and you might want to stop showing the hotspot hints on click. So I'll show you what that means quickly. The hotspots are when I'm clicking in a place that doesn't have an interaction, you see these blue sections appearing. If you don't want that to appear, if you don't want to give visual clues during the prototype, we can just turn that off. And now if I'm clicking, that isn't appearing. The other thing, as I said, is right now if I was on a desktop experience and I was a participant in some usability testing, I would see this bar appearing up here. I'd see this little restart thing and this 2, 3, I'd see that, and that's the Figma UI. So I can click to show the Figma UI, I can get rid of that. To bring it back, you want to do command and backslash, and there we go, we brought it back. So if you're prototyping, make sure you hide the Figma UI. Think about whether you want to change the hotspots, if you want to have them visible or not. So that's about all you need in terms of prototyping. With all that, you can create a prototype. You'll be able to use overlays, you'll be able to maybe have interactive components if it's available at the time that you're watching this. The other thing I wanted to talk about was a little bit of development handover. So up here, we've got these 3 tabs. If you share it to an engineer that doesn't have a Figma license, they'll still be able to see this tab over here, which is called Inspect. And Inspect gives you all the code that you might need to be able to create that component. So when I'm handing over something to an engineer, they'll look at this design, for example, and they'll be thinking, how big is that text? What's the CSS of that text? If I'm building a web experience, what is the CSS of this text? So if I click on that, this is what an engineer would be able to see. They can see that it is my Title 4 style. So if you have a design system set up, that's really easy. That means the engineer can look at the Title 4 style and they can use the Title 4 style, which means they already have everything set up. If you don't have a design system set up and you're building this just off the cuff, they know it's in Roboto, it's 700 font weight, it's 28 pixel high, and it's got a line height of 40, and that means they can get everything right. As you can see as well, when I'm moving my mouse around, they can see all the spacings between things. So here, how close it is to that button, it's 24 pixels away, so they know that. It's 16 pixels from the left, so again, they can know that, and we can start really getting some pixel perfect designs, which are looking exactly as you design them from when an engineer builds them. So if I just go over here as well, again, you can see some of the colors. If I'm in here and I click on this, they know I've got my blue primary. If you don't have the design system set up, you don't have those variables set up, as I say, you can still use the hex code. And you have the options for other things than CSS as well. So if I just go over into here, I can change, maybe if you're building for native apps, you have the iOS code, and you can have the Android code as well. So you can have that choice of things. When handing these things over to engineers, what I'll do is if there's a particular screen that I'm talking about, I'll click on the screen here, and up here where it says share, you can click on that and you can copy the link, or you can put the email address of the person that you're trying to talk to, and you can send it directly to them. And as I say, they'll be able to see these inspect sections, and they'll be able to see everything that they need to be able to build the experience that you have designed. So I really hope you found this episode useful. If you did, please consider subscribing, as it really helps out the channel. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about some of the tips and tricks that I will use, which really help me speed up my workflow. Things such as keyboard shortcuts, which will make things so much easier when you're designing this experience. So I'll see you in the next episode.